My name is Chris White, and my class is Music Theory 110, Fundamentals of Music Theory. There's two ways that I could answer that, and one of them is how is it different than when I taught it before? Because I taught this class once a year and a half ago, unblended, right? And a lot of that class was taken up with the nuts and bolts of note reading, analyzing meter, like how do you know something's in 2/4 versus 4/4, that kind of thing. This time teaching it, it's been a lot more, I've had a lot more time to sort of let topics breathe and let students sort of think about their connections to maybe other humanities classes that they've taken, because we've been able to get away from, hey, is this a B flat or not, to talking about like, where does the conception of B flat come from, a little more in the class. What has happened with me blending the course, having more online tools available to students, is that in class we have a lot more time dedicated to discussions surrounding larger issues, cultural issues, historical issues.
I got this really interesting response from the Bach discussion that I want us to just think about for a second. Turn your papers over, please. This is my rewording of a student response. It's not surprising that UMass would have a Bach festival, given that it's a primarily white Western European institution. The music is well crafted, but it's still a canonic aspect of a culture that I'm not a part of. And this is not just one student, but I got this kind of response a couple of times. There's some feeling of alienation from a certain cultural standpoint, that Bach is not part of every person's culture, and seeing a university put a lot of resources into a festival and not putting resources into music that you might identify with could be hurtful in some way. Let's do small, admittedly socially awkward groups for 3 minutes, and then we'll come back together. Go.
There's a type of student who takes music theory fundamentals who hasn't really read music before, knows something about it, but they sort of know that music is dots on a page. And that kind of student comes into class with a really steep learning curve in front of them. And the first time that I taught this course, I really felt for those students because they would work hard but kept getting progressively diminishing returns as the semester would go on. And so there's this flavor of student who just didn't have the opportunity to get as fluent with the material as they probably needed to by the end of the semester. And what our online resources do is give them the opportunity to drill over and over and over again something that they might not feel comfortable with. So it empowers them to get as comfortable as they can with it before they actually take the homework and then before they take the test. And I've noticed that this kind of student is succeeding a lot more this semester than last semester. And that's I don't know, I think that's a real success of this blending project.
The last one. Yes. Right. The last one. This one.
Okay, I was going that way.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
Right, left to right, we left to right. Yes.
In the classroom, there's only so much drilling you can do. And to have this available to students to have had done, and then to be able to do after class, allows me to, during my class time, either be able to rely on the fact that they've already drilled something, so I can rely on knowledge to push further on some topic, or be able to say, okay, we're not going to drill this right now. Let me get you the scaffold of this concept, and then I trust you to go home and drill it. So this is what our student sees now. So here you've got a melody, and they have to put in whether this is a whole or half step. And then if we check the answer, it will tell us I'm right. But if I had been silly and said that that was a half step, they would get immediate feedback to say, no, it's not a half step. But what it does is it shows where the where your problems are. I teach modular arithmetic here. This is going to be randomly generated, so every time the student sees this, it's going to be a different instantiation of this. So it should be 8, but I'm going to put in 7, and it's going to say incorrect. And so the student would know, oh gosh, I have to try it again. Oh yeah, it's supposed to be 8, and so then they get the correct answer. And so these are the sorts of things that we get to drill. Using it in the classroom is a thing which I would like to experiment with further. It's tough with such a large class, so most of the things I move outside of the actual class time. I have them do short reading responses. They upload them, then I get to see them all, and then I bring selections from their responses into the class, project them on the board, and then we have a classroom discussion based on those excerpts. So in real time, it helps me assume a fluency in the classroom. Technical challenges mostly. Most of our early time developing this course was just asking those kind of meat and potatoes questions. Can we get 5 lines and a note onto a student's online homework? And so trying to figure out what we could do and what we couldn't do was, I think, the largest hurdle that we faced early on. The other thing is that this was a very generous grant, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to be able to do A to Z and more, and I really only got to K, if, maybe more like E. And so adapting our class to then what we could in terms of man hours do also was a challenge that we therefore had to sort of deal with. Yeah, because in G major, your G major scale, in order to get whole, whole, half, you need to go G to A to B, B to C. There's a half step. Okay, great. C to D, whole step. D to E, whole step. E to F is not a whole step. You need to go E to F sharp to get your last whole step there, and then F sharp to G. In this class, there's a lot of very technical things that we sort of have to get our minds around and drill.
And this is on your handout. I've given you a circle of fifths on your handout. If you are on C and you have 0 sharps and 0 flats, and you go up a fifth, you get to G. And you've got 1 sharp. Notice that we've gone from the top, and we go 1 over on the circle of fifths. And what's most satisfying for the students is when we can take those things and then take a real musical situation and show how how it enriches their experience with that music. Let's do a scale on numbers, please. Ready? And do I want hand signals? Sure, hand signals. Ready? And 1, 2, 3. 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Nice. Because after like a couple of weeks of really like pulling their hair out about like how do we know what key something is in, they figure it out, and then I'm like, and this is why you should care. And whole step, half step. Good. Whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And then do that again. That's always a really nice moment when we get to like back off and be like, okay, all these really technical things that we've been working on are turn out to be enhance your musical experience. I want to expand on this course, but we're also planning on taking things that we're doing in this course and bringing them to other courses. Right now we've got a lot of recognition tasks online, but I'd like to get some more production tasks online. That's the kind of thing that I want to get to next, where maybe they can take a mouse and like draw it, or maybe they can work on a tablet and draw it out, or something like that. One thing that music departments all over deal with is that you have different levels of student fluency when they come in freshman year. So what
we're hoping to do is take some of these online tools and make them available to students, incoming students over the summer, so that they can get to a standardized place. And we're hoping that we can make this available to the whole 5 colleges, because this is not a UMass specific thing. I found it useful to be very flexible with expectations and creative with solutions. So there were a lot of points where I was really hoping that we could do this thing, but we couldn't do this thing. We could do this thing. The best sorts of things so far have been the simplest tasks to do online. In terms of like that idea, I would just suggest that you create a wish list that's extremely optimistic, and then do as much as you can. But also think about first doing the things which are the most general and the most applicable, and then, building on top of those things.